The war ended 3 months ago, but Owen Cross can still smell burnt ozone when the wind shifts wrong on the Kashari capital's upper platforms. He stands in the throne room now, all crystalline architecture that grows from floor to ceiling in patterns that make his human eyes water if he looks too long, surrounded by insectoid nobility whose chitinous plates gleam with ceremonial significance. They're here to watch him receive a reward he didn't ask for and definitely doesn't deserve. Captain Owen Cross, human hero. The words taste wrong in his mouth. He's a mediocre tactician who got lucky repeatedly, too stubborn to die and too stupid to recognize impossible odds until after he'd already beaten them. The Devourers had breached Kashari space like locusts through crops, consuming 3 colony worlds before anyone figured out how to fight back. Owen's diplomatic vessel had been in the wrong place at the spectacularly right time, and his series of increasingly desperate decisions had somehow worked. Now the Kashari Empire wants to thank him formally, which involves standing in this throne room wearing a borrowed uniform that doesn't fit right, waiting for Queen Vestara to finish the ceremonial recitation of his accomplishments. She sits elevated on a dais that manages to be both elegant and vaguely threatening, her 4 arms arranged in formal positions that denote imperial authority. Her chiton is deep royal blue marked with silver patterns that indicate her ancient lineage. Owen has studied Kashari biology obsessively since the war, partly professional necessity, partly because he finds them fascinating. They're tall, elegant, their compound eyes seeing in spectrums humans can barely imagine. They communicate partially through color shifts in their chitinous plates, a language Owen can barely read despite 3 months of trying. Right now, the Queen's blue indicates formal neutrality, appropriate for state functions. But he's been watching her for months, during tactical briefings, during the desperate final battle when she'd taken personal command of the flagship, during the aftermath when they'd both been too exhausted for ceremony and had just sat in adjacent chairs, not speaking, sharing the silence of people who'd survived something they shouldn't have. He's learned to read the subtle shifts in her posture, the small movements of her 4 arms, the way her compound eyes focus when she's genuinely interested versus performing diplomatic attention. Right now, despite her formal blue, her secondary arms are held slightly tighter than protocol requires. She's uncomfortable, which makes 2 of them. The ceremonial recitation ends. Various officials have enumerated Owen's tactical brilliance in detail that makes him want to crawl under the nearest decorative crystal. He's been given medals he doesn't know how to wear. The assembled nobility has applauded with polite chitinous clicking that sounds vaguely threatening to his mammalian ears. Then Queen Vestara rises from her throne. The movement causes visible surprise through the court. Apparently queens don't normally descend from daises during formal functions. She approaches Owen directly, all 4 arms moving into a position he recognizes as significant address. Captain Owen Cross. Her voice carries through the crystalline hall without amplification, naturally commanding. The translator implant in his ear renders her clicking speech into flawless English. By ancient tradition of the Kashari Empire, a hero of your magnitude is entitled to request a reward befitting your service. Our resources are considerable. Name what you desire, and if it is within our power, it shall be granted. Owen wasn't briefed on this part. Nobody mentioned requests or rewards, or putting him on the spot in front of several hundred alien nobles who already think humans are barely civilized mammals who got lucky. He should ask for something diplomatic, technology sharing, trade agreements, maybe a formal alliance that would benefit Earth. Something that justifies his presence here, makes him useful beyond accidentally not dying. But he's tired. Tired of ceremony and protocol and performing gratitude for saving an empire that wasn't his to save. Tired of being the human curiosity, the tactical anomaly, the hero who doesn't feel heroic. Tired of ignoring that every conversation with this queen has felt less like diplomatic necessity and more like the first genuine connection he's experienced since his wife died 5 years ago. So instead of being smart, he tells the truth. A question first, Your Majesty. This reward, can I ask for anything? Anything at all within the Empire's power? Her chitin shifts slightly. Not quite a color change, but a ripple of movement that suggests curiosity or perhaps amusement. Within reason and tradition, yes. The Empire is vast, Captain. We command considerable resources, technology, territories. Name your desire. The throne room waits. Owen can feel hundreds of compound eyes dissecting him, measuring him, finding him wanting. He could still salvage this, could ask for something appropriate and diplomatic and useful. Instead, he meets the Queen's unreadable gaze and commits professional suicide. Then I'd like to have dinner with you, just dinner. No ceremony, no court, no protocols. Just two people who survived something impossible, sharing a meal and talking like actual beings instead of titles. The silence is absolute, complete. The kind of silence that suggests everyone present has forgotten how to breathe, or whatever Kashari do instead of breathing. Queen Vestara's chitin goes absolutely still, frozen mid-color in that formal blue. Her forearms lock in their positions like her nervous system forgot how to process input. Around the throne room, courtiers and officials exchange looks that Owen can't interpret, but suspects translate to some variation of, "Did that mammal just say what I think he said?" Someone near the back, a noble with particularly elaborate chitin patterns, makes a sound like choking on protocol. The Queen stares at Owen. Her compound eyes are theoretically unreadable, but something in her posture has shifted. She's no longer performing formal address. She's genuinely shocked, caught completely off guard, seeing him as something other than a useful human for the first time. When she finally speaks, her voice has lost all its formal cadence. The translator renders her clicking as barely above a whisper. "You want dinner with me?" "Yes, Your Majesty." Not territory, not technology, not wealth or titles or diplomatic influence. "Correct. Dinner." If that's within the Empire's power. Owen can't quite keep the slight smile out of his voice, because the most powerful ruler in this sector is standing frozen in shock over a dinner invitation, and somehow that's the most honest moment they've shared. Her chitin shifts through 3 colors in rapid succession, blue to purple to something silver that Owen has never seen before and doesn't know how to interpret. Her forearms unlock slowly, moving into positions that suggest she's processing something complex and unexpected. The throne room continues holding its collective breath. That is, she starts, stops, her chitin flickering through more colors. That is highly irregular. I'm aware. There are protocols, traditions. The Kashari Queen does not have informal dinners with foreign heroes. This is not. This has never. If it's too much, I understand. I can ask for something else. A moon, maybe. I heard you have several to spare. Her chitin flashes that silver color again, and this time Owen catches the faint clicking sound that might be laughter. The Queen of the Kashari Empire, laughing at his terrible joke, while her entire court watches in scandalized silence. "You want to have dinner with me," she repeats, like testing the words for hidden meanings. "No ceremony, no court, just conversation." That's the idea. This is the most inappropriate request anyone has made in the 60 years I've ruled. I'm excellent at inappropriate requests. It's my primary skill set. Another flash of silver, definite laughter this time. Her forearms shift into a position Owen doesn't recognize. Not formal address, not diplomatic neutrality, something more personal. "Very well, Captain Cross. Your request is granted. We shall have dinner, just dinner. No ceremony. Though I should warn you that if this turns out to be some elaborate human tactical maneuver, I will be very disappointed." Not a tactical maneuver. Just an honest request from someone who'd like to know the person behind the crown. Her chitin settles into a deep purple that Owen suspects means something significant, though he can't quite interpret it. Around them, the court is definitely still in shock. Someone is definitely having a medical incident. Lord Kesvel, the noble with the weak thorax that Owen's been warned about, appears to have actually fainted this time. But the Queen is looking at Owen with compound eyes that suddenly feel very focused, very present, very much seeing him as something other than a useful asset or foreign curiosity. She's seeing him as a person who just asked for something impossible, and in doing so maybe gave her permission to want impossible things too. "My private chambers 3 days hence," she says formally, for the court's benefit. "We shall discuss tactical matters privately." "Looking forward to those tactical discussions, Your Majesty." "I'm certain you are." Her chiton flickers with that silver again, barely visible but definitely there. "Dismissed, Captain. And do try not to cause any additional scandals before our meeting. 1 per day is quite sufficient." Owen bows poorly, because he's never mastered Kashari formal gestures, and retreats from the throne room while the court erupts into barely controlled chaos behind him. He's probably just destroyed several months of careful diplomatic relations. He's definitely going to be mentioned in Kashari scandal chronicles for generations. But as he leaves, he catches one last glimpse of Queen Vestara returning to her throne, her chiton still flickering through colors that suggest surprise, amusement, and maybe, just maybe, hope that something sealed for 60 years might finally be allowed to breathe. 3 days later, Owen stands outside the Queen's private chambers wearing civilian clothes and carrying a bottle of human wine that's probably completely inappropriate for Kashari biochemistry. The guards flanking the entrance, massive warriors whose chitinous armor makes them look like walking siege weapons, regard him with the kind of professional suspicion usually reserved for active threats. "Captain Cross," the left guard clicks. The translator renders it with formal disapproval. "You are expected. However, we must inform you that any inappropriate behavior toward Her Majesty will result in immediate termination." "The termination of the dinner or termination of me?" "Yes, that's wonderfully ambiguous, very professional." The right guard's chiton darkens in a way that Owen suspects means, "I really want to throw this mammal off the palace platform, but duty prevents it." The door opens anyway, sliding into the wall with whisper-quiet engineering. The Queen's private chambers are nothing like Owen expected. He'd imagined formal spaces, crystalline austerity, maybe some impressive historical tapestries. Instead, he finds rooms that feel almost comfortable, warm lighting that doesn't assault his human eyes, organic furniture that suggests someone actually sits in it, wall panels displaying what he assumes are personal images rather than official state propaganda. Vestara stands near the viewing window, her back to him, looking out over the capital city. She's changed from her formal regalia into something simpler, still clearly high quality, but more personal. Her chiton displays subtle colors that shift with her breathing, and her 4 arms move in patterns that seem unconscious, natural. "I've been informed," she says without turning, "that Lord Kesvel has filed 3 formal complaints about your presence in the palace. High Priestess Velmora has suggested I'm neglecting my spiritual duties, and General Thexker has very carefully implied that I'm acting unqueenly." "What's unqueenly mean?" She turns to face him, her compound eyes somehow conveying amusement despite their alien structure. "Happy. Queens aren't supposed to be happy, Captain Cross. We're supposed to be devoted, competent, perfectly balanced instruments of imperial will. Happiness is too personal, too selfish, too much about the individual and not enough about the state. That's the most depressing job description I've ever heard. It's tradition." She approaches the small table that's been set up, modified for his height, he notices, and gestures for him to sit. 60 years of it. Sometimes I forget there was ever anything else. Owen sits, setting the wine bottle on the table. "I brought this. It's probably poison to your species, but it seemed rude to show up empty-handed." She picks up the bottle with 2 of her 4 hands, examining it with apparent fascination. Fermented fruit, how delightfully bizarre. Humans deliberately consume mildly toxic substances for recreational purposes. We also jump out of aircraft for fun and base significant portions of our economy on caffeinated beverages. We're not known for excellent life choices. Her clicking laughter fills the space, and Owen realizes it's the first time he's heard her laugh without the weight of an audience. Her chitin shifts to lighter blues and purples, colors he's learned indicate genuine amusement rather than diplomatic politeness. "I've been studying human culture," she admits, setting the wine aside. "Trying to understand the species that saved us through complete disregard for proper military doctrine. Your approaches to governance are fascinating. Messy, chaotic, somehow functional despite violating every principle of efficient administration. But we prefer creatively disorganized. You prefer surviving despite your own best efforts to do otherwise." She's arranged herself at the table, her forearms in casual positions that suggest she's more relaxed than he's ever seen her. "Tell me honestly, Captain, why dinner? You could have requested technology that would advance Earth decades, territory, formal alliances. Instead, you asked for a meal with someone you barely know." Owen considers his answer carefully, decides honesty got him here and might as well carry him further. "During the war, in those brief moments between battles when we weren't actively dying, I'd catch glimpses of you being you. Not the queen, not the perfect ruler, just Vestara. The person who got frustrated when tactics weren't working, who made terrible jokes that your court pretended not to hear, who sat in exhausted silence after battles because speaking required energy neither of us had. And I realized I wanted to know that person, not the crown." Her chitin goes very still, colors frozen mid-shift. "Most people see only the crown. It's been that way so long I sometimes forget there's anything else. There's definitely something else. The crown doesn't laugh at terrible jokes or make frustrated clicking sounds when technology doesn't work properly or look at battle casualty reports like each number is a personal failure." "You noticed all that." "I notice a lot of things. It's how I survived tactics that should have got me killed." She's quiet for a long moment, her compound eyes focused on him in ways that feel assessing and vulnerable simultaneously. "I should tell you something. When you made your request in the throne room, my first instinct was to refuse. Tradition demanded it. Protocol insisted on it. Every advisor I'd mentally consulted would have recommended offering you something appropriate instead. But you accepted anyway." "But I accepted anyway." Her chitin shifts through several colors, blues and purples and that silver he can't quite interpret. "Do you know why?" "Because you're tired of being perfect." The question lands heavier than Owen intended. Vestara's forearms move in agitated patterns, and when she speaks, her voice has lost its formal control. 3 months ago, the Devourers nearly destroyed everything I'd built. 60 years of perfect rule, careful diplomacy, strategic force, all of it nearly collapsed because I couldn't adapt fast enough. I'd been so focused on being exactly what a queen should be that I'd forgotten how to be anything else. Then you arrived with your terrible tactics and complete disregard for proper procedure, and you won. Repeatedly. Impossibly. And I realized that maybe being perfect wasn't the same as being effective. Perfection is overrated. I should know, I'm spectacularly imperfect at everything. You're spectacularly effective despite your imperfection, perhaps because of it." She reaches for something on a side table producing what appears to be food. "I attempted to cook. Fair warning. I haven't cooked personally in 60 years, and I was terrible at it then. This meal may qualify as a war crime under several interspecies treaties." Owen looks at the food. It's definitely food-shaped at least. The colors are concerning and something appears to be moving slightly, though that might just be heat distortion. It looks ambitious. It looks catastrophic. That too. They eat the catastrophic food together and it's terrible. Simultaneously too spicy and too bland, with textures that shouldn't exist in nature, but they laugh through it. Vistara tells him about growing up in the royal family, about the weight of expectations placed on her from hatching, about the moment she realized being queen meant never being fully herself. Owen tells her about Earth, about Seattle rain and forests that grow wild, about his wife who died and the silence she left behind. Somewhere in that exchange, the formal distance collapses. They're just two people who have survived impossible things, sharing terrible food and honest conversation, learning that connection doesn't require being the same species, just being genuine. "Tell me something true," Vistara says eventually, "something you haven't told anyone else." Owen considers, then commits to honesty. "I came to Kashari space looking for a place to disappear. After my wife died, Earth felt too full of memories. I took the diplomatic posting hoping I'd find some distant corner where I could just exist without needing to be anything. Then the Devourers attacked, and suddenly I had to be useful again, had to matter, had to figure out how to survive. And the strange thing is, for the first time in 5 years, I wanted to survive. Not out of obligation, just because." Her chitin shifts through complex patterns, and one of her 4 hands reaches across the table, hovering near his. Not quite touching, Kashari aren't casual about physical contact, but close enough to communicate intention. "I understand that feeling. Sometimes survival becomes so automatic we forget why we're doing it. We just continue because stopping feels more complicated than moving forward. And now I'm remembering why survival might be worthwhile, present company included." Her hand moves closer, 3-fingered and chitinous and completely alien, but the gesture is universal. Owen meets her halfway, their hands not quite compatible but finding a way to connect anyway, because sometimes different matters less than genuine. They talk for hours after that. About responsibilities and loneliness, and the weight of being what everyone needs while forgetting what you need yourself. About small rebellions and postponed dreams, and the courage it takes to admit you want something that isn't about duty. When Owen finally leaves, well past any reasonable hour, Vistara walks him to the door personally, another breach of protocol that would horrify her court if they knew. "Thank you," she says quietly, "for asking for something impossible, for seeing me when everyone else sees the crown. Thank you for saying yes, for being brave enough to be yourself for one evening." Her chitin shifts to that silver color again, and now Owen recognizes it. Hope mixed with fear, want fighting against duty, the color of someone who spent so long being perfect that being real feels dangerous. "Same time next week?" he asks. The silver holds, then blooms into lighter blue. "Same time next week, but next time I'm letting you cook. It can't possibly be worse than my attempt." Challenge accepted. Her laughter follows him down the corridor, and Owen knows that something has fundamentally changed. Some container has been opened, some rule has been broken, some impossible thing has started to become possible. And for once, nobody died and nothing exploded, which by his standards qualifies as perfect. The dinners become routine weekly, then twice weekly, then she starts finding excuses to call him for tactical consultations that have nothing to do with tactics. Owen learns to read her colors. Light blue means happiness, deep purple means vulnerability, that silver pattern means hope and fear fighting for dominance. She learns to read his facial expressions, which apparently are much more obvious than humans realize. They cook together, badly but enthusiastically. They talk about everything, politics and philosophy, and why humans think cats are worth the trouble. Vistara admits she hasn't laughed genuinely in 20 years. Owen makes it his personal mission to change that statistic. The court notices. Of course they notice. When your queen starts wearing colors nobody's seen in decades, when she smiles during formal sessions, when she references private jokes during diplomatic meetings, people notice. The whispers build until even Owen, completely ignorant of Kashari politics, can sense the tension. "There's a formal banquet next week," Vestara mentions during their 7th dinner. They're attempting something called pasta, which is going about as well as expected when one chef has 4 arms and no concept of al dente, and the other chef is Owen. Celebrating the Creche Treaty anniversary. Extremely tedious, politically necessary, the usual diplomatic theater. Sounds like my nightmare. It absolutely is. She's using 3 hands to stir various pots while her 4th manipulates what Owen suspects is supposed to be garlic. I'm required to bring a formal companion. Usually I attend alone or with some military leader whose presence reinforces imperial strength. This year. She pauses, her chitin shifting through several colors. This year I'd like to bring you. If you're willing, it would be a statement. What kind of statement? That the Queen values the human who saved us. That cross-species cooperation is important to our future. That traditions can evolve while honoring their core intent. She sets down her stirring implements, turning to face him fully. The real statement is that I'm tired of being alone at these functions. That maybe I'd like to attend with someone who makes me laugh instead of someone whose presence reminds me of my duty. But that's not the statement I can make officially. Owen sees the vulnerability under the diplomatic language, recognizes the risk she's taking. I'll go. Fair warning. I don't know the protocols, I'll probably insult someone accidentally, and my formal wear is catastrophic. Kashari formal functions are different from human ones. You'll be fine, probably, mostly. Her chitin flickers with amusement, then darkens to that purple vulnerability. Owen, you understand what this means. If you attend as my companion, people will interpret it as more than diplomatic interest. There will be implications, expectations, speculation about our relationship. What is our relationship? The question they've been avoiding for weeks, hanging in the air between them like suspended reality. Vestara's chitin goes very still, all colors frozen. I don't know, she admits quietly. I've been a queen for 60 years and I don't have vocabulary for this. You're not Kashari, so traditional relationship categories don't apply. You're not my subject, not my advisor, not anything I have words for. You're just you. And I find myself thinking about you during policy meetings, laughing at things that aren't diplomatically funny, wearing colors I haven't worn in decades, because you mentioned once that you find them beautiful, which is absurd because you can't even see half the spectrum I'm displaying. Owen steps closer, closing distance she's left deliberately open. I don't know what this is either. I wasn't looking for anything when I came here. But somewhere between terrible cooking and learning your color language, I stopped seeing the Queen and started seeing you. Vestara, the person who gets frustrated with politics, who's been lonely for decades but won't admit it except in private, who laughs at my terrible jokes despite having much better ones herself. I like that person. A lot. Her chitin shifts through a dozen colors rapidly, emotions too complex and fast for Owen to fully interpret. This is impossible. I'm a queen, you're human. Our species barely understand each other. There are 1,000 reasons this can't work. Probably, but I've made a career out of impossible things. Yes, she says softly, you really have. She reaches out with one hand, hesitant, giving him time to retreat if he wants. Owen doesn't retreat. Her 3-fingered hand touches his face, cool chitin against warm skin, gentle despite being completely alien. If we do this, she whispers, if we acknowledge what this is becoming, there's no going back. The court will know, the empire will know. Everything I've carefully built will be complicated by this. I know. You could be targeted, used against me, put in danger because people will see you as my weakness. I've been in danger before. I'm good at surviving. You're good at being stupidly brave. I learned from an excellent teacher. Her clicking laughter is soft, intimate. I'm scared. I haven't been scared in 40 years, and I'm terrified of wanting something that's just mine, not the empire's. Me too, but the things worth having are usually scary. Her 4 arms pull him closer in that distinctly Kashari way, and they stand there in her private kitchen, dinner burning on the stove behind them, while two beings from completely different worlds acknowledge they're falling into something neither expected. "Attend the banquet with me," she says finally, "not as diplomatic gesture, as someone who matters to me personally. Let them speculate, let tradition scandalize itself. Let's do something impossible." That's the best idea anyone's had all day. It's a terrible idea that will probably end badly. I'm excellent at terrible ideas. Her chitin shifts to that silver-blue hope pattern, brighter than he's ever seen it. I'm counting on it. The banquet is exactly as tedious and hostile as predicted. Owen stands at Vestara's side in the crystalline hall, wearing modified formal attire, feeling hundreds of compound eyes dissecting his presence. The Kashari court radiates disapproval. Foreign dignitaries radiate curiosity. Lord Kesvel radiates barely concealed homicidal wishes. Then Ambassador Kreshtal comments on the Queen's unusual colors, those light blues indicating personal happiness, and everything changes. Vestara chooses honesty over protocol, admitting she's happy, that Owen matters to her, that 60 years of perfect lonely devotion nearly destroyed them when they needed creative thinking to survive. Lord Kesvel objects formally. The Queen responds by dismantling tradition in front of the entire assembled court, declaring that being perfect and untouchable is just another way of being dead, that she's done being alone, that if happiness compromises her judgment, then perhaps compromised judgment with actual wisdom is superior to perfect detachment. The court erupts in chaos. Owen supports her publicly, making himself a target. They end up in a small antechamber while diplomatic relations possibly collapse outside. "That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've witnessed," Owen says. "Definitely both." She's trembling, all four arms agitated. "I just told the entire empire that you matter more than tradition. This is going to have consequences." "Probably, but you were right about all of it." Her chitin shifts rapidly, fear and hope fighting. "What if this is a mistake? What if I'm destroying everything I built for something that can't possibly work?" Owen pulls her close, human and Kashari, completely mismatched but genuine. "Then it's a mistake we make together. The things worth having are scary, remember." Her clicking laughter is shaky but real. "I'm very scared." "Me too." They stand like that while chaos continues outside, choosing each other despite impossible odds, being brave together. "What happens now?" she asks. "Now we figure it out, one impossible thing at a time." Her chitin shifts to that light blue he loves, mixed with silver hope that's starting to look less like fear and more like certainty. "That's a terrible plan." "I'm very good at terrible plans." "Yes, you really are." Outside, tradition is scandalized and the empire is reeling. Inside, two people from different worlds are holding each other, being brave, choosing the impossible. And somehow, against all reasonable expectations, it's working. The aftermath is complicated but survivable. Some courtiers support their queen's honesty, mostly younger ones who have been questioning rigid traditions anyway. Others see it as dangerous precedent and make their disapproval known through official channels and barely concealed hostility. Owen receives 3 credible assassination threats in the first week, which he handles with his usual combination of humor and competent paranoia. Vestara faces pressure from multiple factions. Traditionalists demanding she recant her public declaration. Reformists celebrating her courage as progressive change. Military leaders questioning how personal relationships affect imperial policy, and religious officials debating whether she's committed heresy or enlightenment. Through all of it, she maintains her position with a stubbornness that Owen finds both admirable and slightly terrifying. The High Council has called for an emergency session. She informs him during what's become their daily tactical consultation that's actually just dinner. They're attempting something called risotto, which requires constant stirring and is therefore perfect for someone with 4 arms. They want to discuss whether my personal choices compromise my ability to rule effectively. What's your response? That my personal happiness has made me a better ruler, not worse. That the creative thinking that saved us from the devourers came from remembering I'm a person with feelings, not just a perfect instrument of state policy. She's stirring with 3 hands while using the 4th to chop vegetables with alarming efficiency. Also that they can file their concerns formally, and I'll consider them with the exact amount of attention they deserve, which is minimal. That's very diplomatic. I've spent 60 years being diplomatic. I've earned the right to be occasionally petty. Her chitin flickers with that light blue amusement. Lord Kesvel fainted again when I said that. He really should get his thorax checked. The High Council session happens 3 days later. Owen isn't allowed to attend, technically not being Kashari or officially part of the government, but Vestara gives him a full report afterward. She'd stood before the council and delivered a speech about how denying personhood to leaders only creates rigid, disconnected governance. That rulers who remember their people make better decisions because they understand what they're governing for, not just how to maintain power. Then I proposed new law, she says. Her chitin displaying colors Owen has learned mean pride mixed with nervousness. That rulers are permitted personal relationships that don't compromise their duty, because demanding leaders sacrifice all personal connection actually compromises their ability to rule wisely. The proposal sparked 3 hours of debate and will require a full council vote. How do you think it'll go? Honestly, I have no idea. Half the council thinks I'm revolutionizing governance. The other half thinks I've lost my mind over a human. Both might be correct. She moves closer, her 4 arms pulling him into that embrace he's gotten addicted to. Owen, if this fails, if the council rules against personal relationships, I'll have to choose between my crown and this. And I don't know what I'll choose. Yes, you do. She's quiet for a long moment, then her clicking laughter is soft against his shoulder. Yes, I do. I'd choose this, which is either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever contemplated. Probably both. Most good choices are. The council vote happens 2 weeks later. Owen is invited to testify, unprecedented for a non-Kashari, but apparently his status as the human who saved us and accidentally started a cultural revolution grants him special consideration. He speaks about human approaches to leadership and happiness, about how Earth's most effective leaders are often those who maintain strong personal connections, about work-life balance and emotional intelligence, and why denying feelings doesn't make you stronger, just more disconnected. His testimony accidentally starts an empire-wide debate about governance philosophy that spreads across species. The Kresh Alliance contacts them to discuss implementing similar policies. 3 neighboring governments request cultural exchange programs specifically focused on relationship dynamics and leadership psychology. The council vote is close, 14 in favor, 12 opposed, 3 abstentions. The law passes. Tradition evolves, and Vestara stands before her council, her chitin displaying that silver-blue hope pattern openly, and declares that the empire is entering a new era where strength includes vulnerability, where leadership includes personhood, where being perfect matters less than being genuine. 1 month later, Owen and Vestara stand in the crystalline throne room, the same place where he first made his impossible request. This time, there's no ceremony, no formal function. Just the 2 of them and a small gathering of supporters who have chosen to witness this moment. I'm still not entirely sure what to call this, Vestara admits. Her chitin displays those lighter blues and purples openly now, no longer hidden. Human marriage doesn't quite translate. Kashari pair bonding has different connotations. We're making up new vocabulary as we go. I'm excellent at making things up as I go. Yes, you've mentioned. Her forearms pull him close. The court is scandalized. Tradition is evolving, and I'm happier than I've been in 60 years. This is either the greatest decision I've ever made or the most catastrophic, and I don't particularly care which. That's very unqueenly. But I'm learning from a terrible teacher. Around them, the small gathering watches. Some Kashari, some human, representatives from multiple species who have come to witness this impossible thing. General Thexker is there, his chiton displaying grudging respect. High Priestess Velmora is there, her earlier spiritual concerns apparently resolved in favor of love is divine regardless of how many arms are involved. Even Lord Kesvel is there, managing not to faint despite the ongoing scandal to tradition. Ambassador Kreshtal approaches, her tentacles rippling with what Owen has learned to recognize as approval. You've started something interesting, Queen Vestara. 6 species have already contacted the Alliance about implementing similar governance reforms. You and your human have accidentally revolutionized how multiple empires think about leadership and personal life. We just wanted to have dinner together, without everyone having opinions about it. Yes, well, sometimes the most revolutionary acts start simply. The ambassador's translation device renders what might be laughter. For what it's worth, I think you made the right choice. Both of you. The universe needs more people brave enough to choose happiness over expectation. Later, after the gathering has dispersed, Owen and Vestara stand at the viewing window overlooking the capital. The city sprawls below them, crystalline structures catching light and scattering it into colors that still hurt Owen's human eyes. I keep expecting to wake up, Vestara admits quietly. To discover this was some exhaustion-induced hallucination, and I'm still alone, perfectly devoted to duty, exactly what a queen should be. Would you go back if you could? She considers the question seriously, her chiton shifting through thoughtful purples. No, even if this ends badly, even if there are consequences I haven't anticipated, no. I'd rather have known what it feels like to be myself, to be happy, to choose something just because I wanted it. 60 years of perfect devotion nearly destroyed us. Maybe a little imperfection, a little personal happiness, a little choosing each other despite impossible odds, maybe that's what actually makes us strong. That's very wise. I'm learning from an excellent teacher. Owen laughs, pulling her closer despite their biological differences, despite every reason this shouldn't work. We're both terrible teachers learning from each other. It's working surprisingly well. Most impossible things do, when you're stubborn enough. Her chiton shifts to that light blue he loves, mixed with silver threads that are pure hope now, fear burned away by choice and courage, and the revolutionary act of being honest about who you love. They stand like that, human and Kashari, captain and queen, while the empire adjusts to its new reality and tradition slowly, grudgingly makes room for something it never expected. Somewhere below, the city continues its evening routine. Somewhere in the palace, courtiers are probably still debating the implications of their queen's choices. Somewhere in the universe, rules are being rewritten by people brave enough to believe they never made sense in the first place. But here, in this moment, 2 beings from different worlds have chosen each other and given an empire permission to evolve.